2022 will be Valhalla's final year of live service support from Ubisoft, and with the Dawn of Ragnarok DLC done and dusted, that begs the question, what is next for this game? Well, I'm going to break down some official and unofficial speculative info we know so far for this year, so you've got a better idea on potential outstanding updates that are yet to arrive in the game. And let's first start with Rollo, because I confidently believe that he will be making a reappearance in Valhalla in 2022 and be directly involved in the second Tombs of the Fallen update. Incidentally, in October last year, Peder found a wealth of info in the game files where he identified Rollo and Eivor going on a quest together, and we now have some new information to talk about, of course, but as a quick refresher, let me briefly get us all on the same page, as it has been several months since anyone's actually spoken about it. Now, presumably, to get this Tombs of the Fallen 2.0 update started, Rollo sends a letter to Eivor at Ravensthorpe asking for help. Eivor then heeds this call and ends up travelling down to Canterbury to meet him. Now, when we do arrive, we find Rollo. He's in a mental disarray. He can't eat, he can't sleep or think of anything else but doing something with this mysterious stone, which he's actually won gambling against a merchant. In fact, if you were also wondering where on earth Rollo was in the Siege of Paris DLC, considering he plays a prominent role in actual history, Peder's actually found a new entry here where Eivor says, "Is this why you miss Paris? You were playing dice," which I think is Ubisoft's way of closing up a few loose ends there. Anyway, Eivor tells Rollo that it's a stone not of this realm, which Eivor clearly recognises, and notes that there's Anglo-Saxon writing scribbled across the cloth that this apple or piece of Eden has been subsequently wrapped in. Upon further inspection, this turns out to be a location which they go on to travel to, and upon arriving at this location, it is understood from the game files that they chat to the merchant's wife, who informs them that the merchant bought the stone off a grave robber who actually dug it up near some cliffs. And this is when Rollo springs back into action after hearing this, noting that he actually saw cliffs in his vision and then storms off towards them, which we of course follow. Now, it is also presumed and speculated here that we arrive at this fifth Odin rune location on the south coast in England, and this is one of the two remaining Odin rune locations that we have not yet entered in England, the remaining three being located in Ireland, and nothing's been found in the game files, so I'm told, regarding those final three, by the way. Now, as we get ourselves inside this Odin runes vault, Eivor sees a hologram or vision of Caeserion, who mentions his father and mother, the latter being Cleopatra and the former being Julius Caesar, whom we actually both see in AC Origins. And just as an FYI, Caeserion goes on to join the Hidden Ones under Aya or Amunet's mentorship and was the last pharaoh of Egypt, which Ubisoft have subtly noted here, as we've got a new dialogue entry where Caeserion says that the Hidden Ones were right. "Let any who come after me to this place beware. I saw lust for power in Rome, and I saw it destroy Egypt. The desire for greatness took my father and then my mother. If you choose wisdom, leave this place. If you choose power, place what you call the stone on the pedestal before you." Very compelling indeed, and Peder also tells me Caeserion also says the following, which I'm just not going to even try and pronounce right now, but if you have any idea what that translation means, or if you can even translate it at all, please do let the community know down in the comments below. Now, after placing the Apple of Eden on the pedestal, Eivor has a vision of the Battle of Hastings of 1066. Rollo's descendant, William the Conqueror, uses his Apple of Eden to keep Harold Godwinson, the then King of England, bound in place so he could then get an easy shot with his crossbow. After he shoots him in the eye with that crossbow, he claims victory and then goes on to rule England as the first Norman king. After this vision dissipates, Eivor's pulled out, and then Rollo actually hands Eivor a sword, saying, "This sword is meant for you, I will keep my hammer." So perhaps another sword of Eden as a reward here after we experience this vision. However, even though this is of course all subject to change, this does sound exciting, and it doesn't stop there either, because thanks to Peder again, Eivor and Rollo actually go on to experience another vision together at the Thames River in London. At this time, they actually watch as war elephants stampede into the defending Britons as the Romans fight to get a foothold in Britain in 43 AD. Just like the vision's predecessor, we actually follow the breadcrumb trail and end up at the Black Peak in-game, finding Julius Caesar's diary, which then leads us on another kind of treasure hunt to Sutton Hoo, which is a very famous archaeological location in real life, by the way. An excavation took place where they found numerous artifacts of the Anglo-Saxon time period, so perhaps a big reward for us here as well. Now, with all of this info in mind, and I know it's a lot of info, I do think that this is just a piece of the puzzle, and I reckon that the Tombs of Fallen update will actually close Valhalla off this year. Either way, I've got a feeling that we're going to be finding another 2 artifacts in the remaining 2 Isu vaults in England to then use back at Manius' Sanctum, where we'll see all of the Isu magic happen. And I think we're just going to have to ignore the Ireland Odin runes or vaults for the time being, because we have absolutely no information on them whatsoever. But speaking of Isu magic, if you've enjoyed the video so far, and only if you wouldn't mind, a very swift like down below really does help me out, so thank you very much. Now let's talk about the Mastery Challenges 2.0. They're going to be arriving in the 1.51 title update on Tuesday the 19th of April, thanks to an official announcement by Ubisoft. Patch notes, I also imagine, are going to be arriving on Monday the 18th, but we also pick up a brand new Ostara Festival on Thursday the 21st, and more on that later because Jose Ariza, post-launch producer for Valhalla, mentioned to Your Raptor in an interview last year, yes, indeed, they are portals, and you will find out what they are in the next drop for the Mastery Challenges. And link to Yours interview is, of course, down below in the description. Do check that out. But he is referring to the 3 portals in the vault by Ravensthorpe, which you can go and have a perusal at after completing the Mastery Challenge questline. Now, interestingly, Jose went on to say further to Your, you notice the thematic and art direction of them, the transfiguration of the locations, right? And this is where it gets even more interesting because Peder has found clear reference to the mythical realms of Helheim, Alfheim, and Muspelheim being the locations for the Mastery Challenges. And let's actually have a look at each Mastery Challenge location from last year, and you may have not really taken too much notice of the aesthetic of them while playing within them. I certainly didn't, to be honest with you, but as Jose puts it, they each have a different transfigurative art style or location, which I think matches up with each realm portal. And let me show you what I kind of mean here. We have Muspelheim, a fiery realm home to the fire giants. Helheim, a realm of cold where the sick, old, and criminals went when they died. And we've then got Alfheim, home to the light elves who lived in deep puzzlewoods. In fact, Eivor mentions stumbling into Alfheim itself when in Elfwood on a quest in Gloucestershire. And additionally, we have concept art for all of these locations from Ubisoft, so this really does seal the deal for me here. Muspelheim, Helheim, and Alfheim are our 3 Mastery Challenge locations, which we will access by traversing through each portal gate into each individual realm, respectively. However, I do want to note the Alfheim-esque picture on the roadmap here. There isn't a clear sign of mythical worlds just from this one picture, but going on what Jose said, the portals will be involved somehow, so we're just going to have to wait and see on Tuesday. But Yor did ask another great question to Jose in the same interview, that being if we can expect a similar game mechanic or playstyle within the next set of Mastery Challenges, to which Jose said, that does sound like a good hypothesis. So expect the same format of stealth, combat, and range challenges in each realm. And with that achievement leak confirming that we'll be earning gold medals, I wouldn't expect any different. Now, I keep saying Peder has also found, because he has, the guy is absolute legend, but he has found reference to the Vault of Odin, and presumably once we're inside, we'll be able to obtain Hildebrand's Valkyrie armor she is seeking, which funnily enough, Jose confirmed to Yor as well that we will be obtaining in the next Mastery Challenge update. But let's throw a curveball in here and add some more ambiguity to the rest of the year, and let's talk about the realm of Niflheim, because Peder has found a lot of information regarding it. Now, Niflheim was a realm ruled by Hel, one of Loki's and Angrboda's children, and was the final resting place for souls who didn't have heroic deaths or were faithless in life. Those who died without their weapons were also sent here, and it was largely seen as a misty, icy cold realm, similar to the aesthetic we can actually see in the boss fight against Riker in the Dawn of Ragnarok DLC, with Ubisoft drawing up official concept art for this realm as well. Incidentally, Eivor actually says to Gorm, after killing him in Vinland, that they are in Niflheim, where he has been condemned to fade to mist and to be forgotten in eternity to the empty Niflheim realm instead of Valhalla, to Gorm's clear horror. But back to Hel, Loki's child, because Peder has found a very specific reference to a boss fight against her in Niflheim, which is really intriguing from a Norse mythology perspective, as Hel was instrumental in the attempt to help resurrect Balder, Odin's son, who was at the core of the storyline in the Dawn of Ragnarok DLC. Loki is also heard to say to Angrboda in the Animus Anomalies that the Mad One is away, wandering lands afar, searching for a way to resurrect his son. And thanks to Bears and Black in our Discord community for finding that, by the way. I think it's an important reference. So could this realm be a lead on from the Dawn of Ragnarok DLC, where Odin is searching for a way to bring back Balder to life and attempts to make a deal with Hel to resurrect him, which actually ends up going sour, and they end up having a little bit of a scrap, the boss fight that Peder's referenced, and perhaps that's because Loki, her father, is currently locked away in Asgard. Another interesting point here, Peder's found reference to Niflheim potion and inside Valka's hut, and coincidentally, there is a space left for a future potion on the table. We may be overthinking this and looking a bit too much into it here, but with the amount of Niflheim references that Peder has found and story potential here, I do think it is quite hard to ignore. Perhaps we pick up a similar sized update to that of the Cassandra DLC DLC, but instead of the Isle of Skye, it's Niflheim, which I know is a big leap, but I would love some more official info about the post roadmap we've just picked up, which only runs until May. But let's move on and talk about some new weapons, because thanks to Ibsarp, he's found this quite impressive looking one-handed sword in the game files. We've got no name as of yet, and it doesn't seem to be associated with any Helix pack noted currently in the game files, which is quite unusual because usually these weapons are found as part of a cohort, but not this one. I also do think it's quite unique, particularly with the blue dragon head at the hilt, and incidentally the size of it could be argued as being similar in length to that of Kara's Sikhs in the Wrath of the Druids, and excuse the pronunciation there, but Jose said in the same interview to Your Raptor that you will see more weapon types, and it would be disappointing if Kara's sword was exactly the same as the short sword. So perhaps this is the first iteration of a new weapon type that we'll be seeing in future updates, and I could definitely see the mechanic that we've actually seen in the Helix weapons, such as the katanas, being applied here to these new weapons, where you'll actually pick up bonuses for equipping both of them together and not individually. But as we're going to be picking up a new title update on Tuesday, we may be able to get some more information on it soon, of course, courtesy of Peda and Ibsarp. Okay, now let's talk about the real MVP of Valhalla, Reda, and what is actually going on with him. He's appeared in the most recent Dawn of Ragnarok DLC, with Eivor even saying, "I was wondering when you were going to show up," and I completely subscribe to that sentiment myself. He's so far appeared in Origins and all of the Valhalla expansions so far, and I can't see him disappearing anytime soon. In fact, he goes on to tell Eivor that he has a plan for Ragnarok, and thanks to Loki's mentoring, he has put those lessons to good use in ways even Loki could not have dreamed of, foreshadowing some sort of immortality scheme, I reckon. And this almost kind of confirms to me that he's either Isu, part Isu, or an Abstergo agent somehow jacked into the Animus for observational purposes. However, his backstory aside, Peda has noted that Reda will be making an appearance in the Mastery Challenges 2.0, where he's going to be offering us daily challenges and further rewards for obtaining a gold medal. So he is getting involved in future content again, and I really do hope we get something substantial regarding his purpose as we close off Valhalla this year. I think the constant teasers, carrot on the stick hints across years of content and completely different games are becoming quite tiresome, to be fair. So let's have something solid, please, Ubisoft, and preferably politely soon. So festivals, it seems that they're returning this year, as we've mentioned, and we're going to be picking up the Ostara Festival this time on Thursday the 21st. But are they going to be changing in any way if you actually completed them last year? Well, Peda tells me he can see references to all of the festivals currently in the game files, but nothing has visually changed from his point of view since last year. So do expect a rerun of the Ostara Festival from 2021 with a couple different rewards, just as we saw in the Yule Festival at Christmas. And while we're on this roadmap, by the way, there's a new feature and not game mode arriving in the next title update in May. It's called the Armory, and what it looks like to me is a place where you could store all of your armor sets and weapons in Ravensthorpe itself. And when I see this, I think of something like we saw back in Assassin's Creed 2 in our villa, where we could literally store and visually see everything. And we should have some more definitive info on it this week, so as soon as I know more, I'll make sure to let you know. And speaking of title updates, and historically with every iteration of a new season, we've picked up new skills or abilities that have been added to the ever-expanding skill tree, and that doesn't seem to be differing here, as Peda has found new skills for us to mull over, and we don't actually have visuals of them at this stage, but I'm sure we'll pick them up soon, and these descriptions, I think they kind of speak for themselves. So first up, we've got the Hunter Flare, where whistling will now highlight and attract animals at a greater distance, which is definitely going to be a game-changing, impactful skill for sure. But jokes aside, I actually like this second one. It sounds fun. It's called the Slide Focus, and while we slide across the ground, our senses will be heightened, making others around you appear to move slower. And I reckon this is pretty similar to what we see when we're jumping and then subsequently aiming with our bow, where we're able to transition into a matrix slow-mo state. And I can also definitely see both of these being used in the Mastery Challenges in some sort of format, but we're just going to have to wait and see. Now, game modes. Will there be any new ones from what we already have? That being the Tombs of the Fallen, the Mastery Challenges, River Raids, and arguably the new Valkyrie Arena. Well, Jose Ariza said to Yor in the same interview that there is a new game mode coming, but that was before the Dawn of Ragnarok DLC, so things could have changed since then, or he could have just been referring to the Cassandra DLC or the Valkyrie Arena itself. But that said, I would be surprised if we saw a additional game mode in our final year of Valhalla. In fact, I think we'll see the River Raids return, but perhaps threaded into the Mastery Challenge portals we discussed earlier, those going to Muspelheim, Helheim, and Alfheim, where we'll be able to raid these mythical realms as part of the free update. This would also allow Ubisoft to show off their mythical realm assets from the Dawn of Ragnarok DLC and tempt players to potentially purchase the expansion after having a little bit of a taste. And we saw Ubisoft implement a similar tactic with river raids in Francia and Ireland, where you could raid those locations even if you didn't own the expansion, and I would expect the same here. We also have a note given to us from Varn after finishing all the river raids and defeating the champions of faith. It's left as, "Your gods will not hear you when we come for you," which I think confirms that we're going to be raiding sometime this year, or perhaps more champions of faith are going to be hunting Eivor. Otherwise, what's the point in putting that note in the game? But you never know, it could just not happen. But speaking of not happening, where's New Game Plus? Is it actually going to be coming? Well, I do think it is a big opportunity missed from Ubisoft, as Jose Ariza also noted early last year. It will be one of the last things that Ubisoft do, as they don't want people to miss the festival content, which I find a little bit perplexing, as I would have much rather played certain story arcs and boss fights again, rather than defeat an aggressive chicken in the woods outside Ravensthorpe for a reskin of a weapon that I've never bothered to use. Now, I'm not dunking or throwing shade here, I'm just sharing my own personal opinion as someone who is still engaged with the game for this long. I think they've missed the mark here. Good news though, because PETA has found reference to New Game Plus in the game files. It's called New Game Plus Settings, and PETA has also told me that there is a basic mechanic in the game files that can be used to choose individual quests, which would be awesome as an addition to replaying the whole campaign. Now, no further info for you at this stage, but it seems like it is in the works. It's the first that we've seen in the game files, and I do hope this will be appearing this year unless they decide to scrap it. So big fingers crossed for this one. Another big fingers crossed though, and that's Ezio's Revelations outfit, and I do think it's on the horizon and closer than we think. PETA was the one who actually found the Unibear, Ezio's Revelations outfit, as well as all of the other rewards in the game files before anyone else, including Basim's sword back in September. You may have also noticed that every week we seem to pick up a new tattoo set as a community challenge reward. Well, there's only a couple more left to come since PETA's discovery in September, meaning after all of these appear, we've only got the Unibear to come, which was officially announced by Ubisoft recently, and then we've got the Ezio Revelations outfit, and I think they're saving this for a big announcement to get players re-engaged in the game via this outfit drop, and then hit us with a big new announcement, perhaps the next Rift game when there's more eyeballs on screen. Contrastingly though, they did release Altair's Legacy outfit at the start of the Ostara Festival season last year, which we're now waiting for this year, so perhaps we just pick it up at the start of the new season. Honest answer is, we don't actually know. It is in the game files, and I hope that they do tell us soon. But what I would say is, if you haven't already done so, do subscribe for more Assassin's Creed content and Valhalla info this year. Additional big thanks to all of you reloaders who support me and the channel directly with your own hard-earned cash. I'm very grateful, and our thanks go out to PETA for all of his hard work and everyone else who contributed to this video for the community. You absolute legends. Also, check out this video on your screen about the new info we know about the next AC game Rift. Lots of cool things to go over. Hopefully see you there in a second. Coffee is of course on me.